Before we begin today's foibles, I want to give a quick shout out to the patrons in the Mutt tier. We've got Wilma, Glad Goku, Dare Denny, Kale Bennett, That Jordo, Ken K of Warheads, SP can't come to the phone right now, please leave a message after the beep, beep, Sirius the Skeptic, Biotin, and I've bought the entire helium supply. Have fun blowing up balloons now. Thank you. Hi, what's up? I'm Channel Pup, the mascot for the level-headed fanboy. Recently, I did a ranking of the top 15 MCU superhero costumes. I'll put a link in the pinned comment to that if you want to see that. Today, we'll be doing the same, but for villains. And antiheroes as well. A little more overlooked, and I guess more of a unique selection with more of a mix of like kind of comic book accurate ones and some very unique depictions. This is also going to vary from like outfits to just general designs as well. There are some all CGI creations on this list, and I have kind of kept it to one outfit per villain, or just one design per villain, because there are some villains that have way more looks than others, so one look per villain. Now, of course, if you love Marvel Comics, if you love Marvel movies, you are in the right place. Be sure to hit subscribe for more Marvel goodness shooting straight up your urethra and giving you a yeast infection. Not sure why you'd want that, actually, now that I mention it, but hey, listen, it's a good thing, I swear. And of course, if you're already subscribed and interested in supporting me further, the link to my Patreon page is in the description below. It does come with different rewards, and it helps me out massively, and especially as it's like that early year YouTuber ad revenue is not great. So yeah, it would give me a huge hand. For one-off donations, the link to the Ko-Fi is also in the description below. Shilling over, thank you. So in at number 15, and I do want to stress this is the top 15, so none of these are bad. This is all a solid crop, but yeah. In at number 15, we have the High Evolutionary from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Okay, alright. Okay, now. This isn't one of the designs that looks like the comics. There's really not much in common between this and the High Evolutionary's comic book design, and to tell you the truth, I don't know much about the High Evolutionary from the comics. Like a lot of people, my Guardians of the Galaxy exposure only really goes as far as the movies, or maybe that game that Square Enix released a few years ago. However, comic accuracy isn't the be-all and end-all, especially when you've got a design that represents the character as well as this does. The High Evolutionary is someone who is willing to manipulate the natural order to achieve his own messed up idea of perfection, and this design absolutely sells that, with his face kind of being hooked into place after clearly being removed. That's just a really gruesome design choice, and I love it. It reminds me a lot of Jerome Valeska from Gotham, and the way you can kind of see the skin stretching around the edges. Very creepy. That is, in my opinion, the best aspect about this design. Everything else is fine. I would say this purple getup definitely sells sort of regal space dude. At the same time, it's a little generic. It's that sort of cosmic space dude look. That's just really all there is to it. Remember what I said in the past about how a lot of MCU characters kind of let it go to the same tailor? Yeah, I can kind of see this. The outfit could be worn by pretty much anybody, but it's the prosthetics that really sell this one. You know what I think would have been a great balance? Give him like the sort of the bodysuit that he had in the comics while giving him the face that he has in this movie. Dude, also just, I can't stress it enough, this dude is despicable. He deserved way worse than he ended up with. In at number 14 is Talos from Captain Marvel, among other just MCU stuff. So we've got an instance where, while there are departures from the classic design, this is still immediately recognizable as Talos from the comic books. And I think it looks overall okay. The best part of this is once again the prosthetic makeup. They've done a very good job at kind of adapting that very sort of green reptilian skull appearance here. I do wish it were maybe a slightly richer green than what we've got, but this ain't bad at all by any stretch, and I really like the different sort of like line work going around the face and around the chin, and the big goblin-y ears. Like, that definitely sells it. Once again, though, the bodysuit kind of lets this down a little bit. It's by no means as garish or as just generally interesting to look at as his comic book counterpart. It's got the colors in there. They are, of course, much more subtle and muted than they are in the comic books, but it does have these purple accents on the jacket at the very least. And they've given it kind of this patchwork of different textures, different lines sort of weaving in different directions, and that's sort of supposed to sell that this suit can change with the body. You know, it's a shape-shifting suit, so it takes on a lot of forms, even in its base form. I don't think it really sells that look, but I do at least appreciate what they were going for here. I do like the collar, though. I like that they didn't shy away from giving him a cool collar, but I wish we could have the shoulder pads and stuff, man. We could have had a much more ostentatious look than this. This works. It does look like Talos, but it's just a much more understated version of that design. In other words, it's a little more pussy about itself. Less confidence. But it's not bad. It does at least look like Talos. In at number 13 is Ronan the Accuser. Because while Ronan is like the writing equivalent of tap water, his design was actually pretty faithfully adapted from the comic books, with the only major difference being the colors, with his green warrior's outfit being traded in for a black one, with kind of this red war paint design on the chest. And I really like how this outfit takes different inspiration from, like, medieval armors. What we have here is kind of like a space medieval warlord in terms of design. It's a very cool design, especially with the markings on his face as well. Of course, in Captain Marvel being a prequel, we got kind of a younger version of Ronan the Accuser, and in that, he actually had a much more comic book accurate outfit, trading in the black color scheme for more of a cosmic green look, which does, again, look like he's shopped at the same tailor as some of the other MCU characters in the cosmic side of things, which is why I personally prefer the more sort of gritty medieval look of his Guardians of the Galaxy design. It's not very easy to find nice things to say about Ronan the Accuser. He's kind of like MCU villain failure incarnate, but they did a nice job with his design, translating this character in a way that feels unapologetic. It doesn't feel like they changed it because they were shying away from the comic book roots. It feels like they changed it because they had inspiration from other places. Like, it better match the kind of world they were trying to build in Guardians of the Galaxy 1. So again, comic accuracy doesn't always win here, and I do think his Guardians of the Galaxy 1 design is the better one. In at number 12, though, we have Helmet Zero, and no, not his outfit that he wore in Captain America Civil War, because that's nothing. That's barely a villain design. Now, we are talking about his disguised look. When it comes to making a character look like a comic book villain, a purple snood can go a very long way. And I will say this, I am still amazed by how budget-unfriendly MCU costumes can be. In that, when you look at Zemo's mask in the comics, you see kind of like a knitted mask, I guess, with some kind of metal pieces on it, whereas in the show it's this fully fitted thing with these plastic bits around the eyes, and it's probably got some kind of like Spider-Man equivalent face shell underneath as well, and it's like, yeah, no, any way to make this as expensive as can be, but to be fair, the rest of the outfit probably saved them a few bucks. In that, no, he's not running around in this crazy outfit from the comics here, instead adopting a long leather trench coat with kind of fur around the neck region, and he's got like a purple turtleneck kind of deal going on underneath. And I gotta say, I think this was a really tasteful way of kind of adapting Zemo's design from the comic books. There's definitely parts of that iconography being interpreted here, but what we have is kind of like a very timely update that doesn't suck all the fun out of the original look. This is a redesign done right, and he looks pretty badass. In at number 11 is Electro from Spider-Man No Way Home. And I am talking about the outfit that he gets during the final battle of the film. Electro's outfit from the comics obviously isn't going to work in the context of a contemporary blockbuster, unless Electro were going out of his way to kind of give himself a supervillain design. Like, there is no reason why a villain can't go and raid a party city and decide, hey, I'm gonna make myself a villain costume, because villains just do that. It doesn't always have to be practical, but in the case of Electro, I think this does just make a lot of sense, and they have found a way to make it look really cool. They moved away from the whole Energy Manifest look for this one in favor of letting Jamie Foxx look like Jamie Foxx, which already went quite a long way. However, we've got an outfit here that does look practical, it looks like it serves a purpose, while also, like Zemo, sharing a lot in common with that comic book counterpart. For one, the colors. We've got this very muted sort of military green short-sleeved shirt, very reminiscent of sort of sporty Under Armour. And then you've got these little yellow straps on the chest which hold the arc reactor in place. But one of the things I love the most about this design is how there's elements of Electro's comic book design that have been adapted using actual sort of scientific electricity stuff. For example, you've got these cables draped over him that look like earth wires, kind of in the place of just having those electric spark designs going down the torso. You've got metal gauntlets that will conduct electricity, a metal belt. Rather than yellow trunks, he's got khaki pants on. But then you've got these dark green pads going down the lower legs, so it breaks up the design in the same way that sort of comic Electro did with, having the yellow trunks and then the yellow boots. I just love seeing comic book iconography interpreted through this sort of lens, using practicality to create that very outlandish look. Now, this is already great, but the icing on the cake is when the electricity around his eyes forms that signature Electro mask shape. It only happens a couple of times, and for brief moments at that, but it's a seriously cool homage. I absolutely adore what they did with Electro's design in Spider-Man No Way Home. It is so clever. In at number 10 is Monga from Iron Man 1. The MCU villain that started it all, well, short of the Ten Rings terrorists anyways. Now, this is by no means a faithful adaptation of Monga's design from the comics. It achieves the same overall effect. It's a big, evil metal man. However, there's a lot more influence from the Iron Man Mark I armor here, and he looks a bit less Warhammer-y. He's a very industrial, very ostentatious take on Iron Man. It's like, hey, you're Iron Man, I got a bigger Iron Man. A testament to the ego of Obadiah Stane.
Hey, Iron Man! I have a better Iron Man than you! I call him Iron Man!
If Iron Man was meant to look like a superhero, then Monga is meant to look like a weapon. The kind of weapon that Tony was trying to rid the world of. Even down to the fact that the weapons are just clearly on display here as well. You can see the flamethrower on his arm. You can see the Gatling gun, the rocket launcher. It's all out in the open. Even down to having a way bigger arc reactor. Interesting little fact. When I was younger, I collected the Iron Man 1 action figures and had the Iron Man video game on the PlayStation 2, and interestingly, with both of those, he had a red arc reactor and red eyes, because he's evil, and had much more of a sort of rusted kind of aesthetic to him, which he didn't have in the film, so I'm guessing that they might have changed his design a little ways down the line. It's not uncommon when it comes to MCU stuff. I guess maybe that was a little too on the nose. Either way, Monga is a seriously cool villain with a seriously cool design. In at number 9 is Crossbones, who only really made an appearance as Crossbones proper in Captain America Civil War. And even then, it was just for that opening scene. It's kind of interesting how they set him up over the course of Captain America 2, only for him to play a very bit part in Captain America 3 and then never be seen again. Now, I don't know much about Crossbones from the comic books, however, what we have here is another interesting, much more militaristic reinterpretation of the Crossbones design. Everything that makes the Crossbones design iconic in the comic books is present here in the films, except it's going for a very different approach. Where in the comics he's wearing a very basic vest, in the movies it's more like riot gear with the Skull and Crossbones paraphernalia stenciled onto it, using like a spray paint, and it's all been smudged. So nothing is really missing from that classic comic book design, and in fact in later comic books as well, he would adopt that more sort of militaristic look that he has in these movies. The only thing I will say is I do feel like the MCU really shies away from belts, because like the belt here is very subtle, whereas in the original it broke up the design a lot more. Wish he had more of that going on. But again, it's a faithful reinterpretation of the classic look, and I think this was a very smart way to go. While it is quite high on this list, I don't think this is anything to really write home about. And that's because I just don't really care that much about Crossbones. But I won't deny they did a really good job adapting him. In at number 8 is Hela from Thor Ragnarok. This one here is a near one-to-one translation. You've got like a black jumpsuit, but then you've got this sort of green design, these green accents around it, that complement the form and look both very regal, but at the same time that contrast between the black and the green has quite a sinister look to it. Almost like the costume equivalent to a kabuki mask. But the cherry on the cake of this design is a little underutilized, but I am glad it's here. It is Hela's iconic headgear, which again has been very faithfully adapted, and they really haven't shied away from making this thing look impressive. It's also a design that gradually evolves through the course of the film as well, even going so far as to gain her cape by the final battle. And yeah, I think they just did a really nice job with this design. It's pretty much one-to-one with Hela in the comics, and it's a very tasteful adaptation. Plus, it fits the very out-there tone that Taika Waititi was going for with Thor Ragnarok, before he went way too bloody far with it in Thor Love and Thunder, but that's a different subject. As far as Hela goes, yeah, nailed it. In at number 7 is the Winter Soldier, and I am referring to when he is in his Winter Soldier form. when he is a pawn working for Hydra. Not when he's the White Wolf or just Bucky or just a very conflicted Bucky like we get in, say, Captain America Civil War. No, I am referring to how he looks in Captain America The Winter Soldier. Yeah, he looks like an absolute badass. As far as comic book adaptations go, this design is absolutely dead on. They did not miss a beat with this one. From his very militaristic, dark, tactical gear through to his very big, shiny metal arm, which of course would be incomplete without the red star on the shoulder. Even that domino mask gets a little bit of love here. Yet it's done in an incredibly smart way. See, I don't think the MCU really does domino masks. These movies tend to lean much more into practicality, so they tend to avoid things like domino masks, which are very sort of showy. However, he does have more of a sort of a military tactical mask, and the eyepiece lenses do make that sort of domino mask shape, yet it's actually when he takes that mask off that he looks even more recognizable as the comic book Winter Soldier, because rather than a domino mask, he's got this very smeared sort of black war paint around his eyes, which makes up the exact same shape. Meaning that while this is a different thing in universe, it still evokes the exact same look, and I think this was a fantastic move. Not to mention, it just looks badass. A lot of very smart choices were made here. I didn't think it was ever going to take a lot to make the Winter Soldier's design work in live action, but here they've just nailed it on all fronts. It is also by far his best outfit in the MCU. In at number 6 is the design for Thanos, but I'm going for the design that he had in Avengers Infinity War, rather than that more comic booky sort of armor that he wears in Avengers Endgame, because I just think there's more to say about the character with this design here. It's Thanos just running around in his Sunday casuals, basically. And yet that somehow makes him so much scarier. See, Thanos in Avengers Infinity War was an incredibly well-developed villain. Even though we've got this big purple thumb walking around on screen, it's believable that he actually exists because he has a philosophy and an idea that any sane person would disagree with, but you can also kind of see the vision. There he is. No, but in the case of Thanos, this could be like somebody's dad, you know? I mean, he is. And he also looks like it. He's someone who is just so convinced that he's right that he's willing to sacrifice everything to achieve an utterly grim goal that he thinks everyone's going to be grateful for. And this very sort of casual design that he's rocking in Avengers Infinity War absolutely fits the bill. He's going into battle and he's not even wearing sleeves. That is genuinely so much more intimidating than him being caked in armor. Which I do want to state was by no means a bad design. It was a very cool design, and it was cool to see a Thanos that just unapologetically looks like Thanos. But this was a lot more frightening. Just a lot more intimidating. They took a purple space thumb dude and made him feel like a real person, and I think this design went a long way towards that. Hi, Pup from the editing stage here. There is just one thing that I really wanted to mention, feel like I should have mentioned in the first place, is that this is a design that could not have been pulled off nearly as well as it were without the talent of the CGI specialists that brought this design to life. And the same will be true of other designs on this list, but I mean, same goes for the people that actually have to make the costumes as well, as opposed to just kind of designing them. The people that had to like source the materials or put these things together, just the people that bring these designs to life. I just wanted to make sure that there's a little bit of recognition sent their way as well. In at number 5 is Ultron. Now again, bit divisive this one, because there are definitely some decisions made with Ultron's design that I think are going to work for some and not going to work so well for others. So for one, he doesn't really look much like the Ultron from the comics. You've got that red and silver color scheme there. And he's made of metal. And to be fair, he does get a slightly more comic book appearance towards the end of Avengers Age of Ultron. But I'm just kind of talking about his main design for the film because I actually think it's a little better. The much more comic booky Ultron designs, though, go to his sort of Ultron drones that he's got for the final battle of the film. Meanwhile, Ultron Prime gets something a little bit more original. And it's a design that I absolutely vibe with. So yeah, they made the decision to give him an emotive face complete with moving eyebrows and lips. And I can completely understand why for some that might look a little bit uncanny, or maybe it looks a little too CGI in spots. But I really liked the idea that Ultron is kind of this perfect human replica, only he's made of metal. So yes, he can emote. He can move his eyebrows and his mouth around, because he is, in the most literal sense, a metal man. Of course, he doesn't have a nose and he is like 8 foot tall, but still, I see the vision. There he is. Especially when he's pissed off, he just looks so menacing. And I just think this design's awesome. I also just like how elegant the metal work on like his torso is as well. Man, I really hope someday we get to see Ultron in a film that isn't directed by fucking Joss Whedon. God damn it. Yeah, he's in What If, but sucks. In at number 4 is the Green Goblin, and I do want to note I am talking exclusively about his MCU design and not about the Sam Raimi design. Yes, he does have it near the start of Spider-Man No Way Home, but that's not an MCU design, that is a Raimiverse design. I'm not counting that as part of the MCU. That just feels like cheating. Now, I want to make it clear out of the gate that my preference is always going to be the 2002 design. It doesn't matter if they make something that is more practical or more comic booky looking, which is everything the MCU Green Goblin design is. I'm staying loyal to the 2002 design. I prefer it. And yes, there is a big part of my heart that wishes we could have stuck with that design, but at the same time, I won't deny that just on an objective level, everything about the Green Goblin's MCU design is a stroke of genius. They made all the right calls here, it's just me, I'm a 2002 simp. I love that with the Green Goblin, what we saw here was a repurposing of elements of that original 2002 design transformed into a brand new design. Gone is the mask. It stings, but it makes total sense. Willem Dafoe's face is tremendously expressive, and he can convey being a Green Goblin without even being painted green, which is a testament to how good of an actor Willem Dafoe is. That Goblin armor he had in the 2002 version has been scuffed up and damaged beyond recognition, making it a much grimy, more battle-worn look, but it also has other little enhancements that have just been kind of strapped and bolted onto it, which makes this design just look that much meaner. I actually have that Spider-Man No Way Home Green Goblin deluxe figure, and I opted to display him with the classic helmet and strip away the purple hoodie and such. And what you end up with is just a very battle-ravaged Green Goblin, wearing the Green Goblin's iconic satchel, and I gotta say, this is peak. It's amazing what a little bit of battle ravaging can do in making a design just look that much more menacing, a little less Hollywood. But okay, while running around incognito, Green Goblin was wearing a purple hoodie and purple pajama pants over his goblin armor. And they, of course, get tattered up, creating that iconic Green Goblin purple hood. I cannot believe how many live-action Green Goblins it took for us to finally get one that has a purple hood. That is nuts. We literally had spiky hair before we got the purple hood. What is going on? And then to kind of give him those big old bulging goblin eyes, he wears like a pair of goggles, but he only wears them briefly. He expresses mostly with his Willem Dafoe face afterwards. I also like that he's got these little purple accents bolted onto his green armor, which I'm to believe are pulled from the glider, hence why that too looks a little different. I definitely would have liked to have seen the mask get just a little bit more play, because I think it would look great with the rest of the suit. At the same time, though, I understand why they made the decisions that they did here. And as Willem Dafoe himself said, the Green Goblin's metal mask was subject to ridicule back in the day, which is a shame because I really got that mask. It was meant to be a kabuki mask. Norman collects kabuki masks. They are all around his study. It sucks to be one of the only ones that sees the vision. There he is. In at number 3 is classic Loki. Sometimes I am just going to be a basic bitch and rank these high up for comic accuracy. Sometimes it just really is the best way to go. Man, it's got to be said, Richard E. Grant, what a get for this role. But yeah, in the Loki TV series, we've got like a variant of Loki played by Richard E. Grant. And he wears what is undoubtedly the most faithful possible adaptation of Loki's iconic costume. And it looks legitimately amazing. At no point did I, or I think anyone else, go, God, that looks goofy. Partly because Richard E. Grant carries it with such gravitas, but it's also very textured. Like, they've dirtied it up a little bit, they've made it look very tangible. I could believe that in some Royal Asgardian space world, a guy might actually dress like this. I know Marvel kind of used these kind of costumes as little one-off things to say, hey, there's that classic outfit, we've paid homage to it, but, you know, we've got our own style that we won't change. But this just made me crave a far more stylized MCU. It just works. In number 2 is Red Skull. And what we have here is another straight-up translation of the comic design. Like, what do I even say about this? That just is Red Skull, no two ways about it. He's got that double-breasted black leather trench coat, which just looks really imposing. And they absolutely nailed the makeup. And look, the belt isn't even that shy about being a belt on this one. That's awesome. They haven't tried to hide it or blend it in with the rest of the costume like a bunch of sissies. Red Skull just looks utterly menacing. What more to really say? He's perfect. And in at number 1. I am predictable as ever, but I am not shying away from it. It is Mysterio. The Hot Toys Mysterio is the only Hot Toys action figure I've ever bought, and that is for a good reason. Mysterio is my all-time favorite comic book villain. Yes, he exceeds the Joker as far as I'm concerned. I just find him more interesting. And look, Mysterio's got quite an over-the-top, outlandish design, and I think that's part of the appeal of the character. He's a big fraud, so naturally he's going to over-egg the pudding, but I didn't know if the MCU would necessarily understand that, because oftentimes they do make things a little bit more understated. Plus, the Ultimate Comics have been very influential to the MCU, and in the Ultimate Comics, Mysterio has a very drastic redesign. When it's come to modernizing Mysterio over the years for a contemporary age, a lot of the different redesigns have kind of missed that the guy is meant to look kind of goofy. Almost like a parody of a superhero, from a guy who has seen way too many B-movies. Given the track record of redesigns kind of missing that, I didn't expect us to get the green togs, or the golden gauntlets, or the big purple cape, or the fishbowl. And the fishbowl was the one thing I wanted more than anything else. I was expecting black jumpsuit, flaming head. I was expecting Ultimate Mysterio. So imagine my excitement when I first saw the trailer for Spider-Man Far From Home and saw Mysterio rocking up not only in green togs and a purple flowing cape, but also with his fishbowl. Which I then thought, okay, he's gonna wear that for like a scene and then he'll never wear it again, right? No, fishbowl got extensive use. I was bloody tickled pink, I tell you what. Now, this is, of course, a more high-budget take on Mysterio. It doesn't look like something that's been thrown together in a guy's basement like it does in the comics. However, it is clear to see where Quentin Beck would have taken inspiration from the other superheroes in the MCU. And I mean, that is what he's trying to do. He's trying to be a fake one of them. So with this armored chest piece, you can see a lot of Thor inspiration. And in the way that the cape kind of flows around his shoulders as well. It's very Asgardian looking. But then you've got that sort of all-seeing eye paraphernalia as well, with the clasps that hold down his cape. Again, it's a nigh-on straight adaptation of Mysterio. It's just like, take Mysterio, put him in the MCU microwave, pull him out, and this is how he'd look. They didn't shy away from it, and everything I love about this design is here. The green togs, the flowing cape, the gauntlets, the eyes, and the single most important design element, the fishbowl. And even when in the third act of the movie he does get a different design that isn't all magical looking, it's more like a mocap suit, they still made sure that he had a fishbowl on his head. I couldn't be more grateful for that. It is ridiculously important to me. Am I maybe just a little bit biased? Shut up! Go make your own damn list, get out of my hair. But to be honest, if you don't think this design is peak, then you're basically worthless. And if you take that seriously, you are dangerously dense. So those are my top 15 MCU villain designs that I've been gradually rearranging in my head as I've been reading this list out. So this is officially meaningless. Thanks for your time. Now give me your money. Patreon link in the description below. Get your name in the credits for $1. A special verbal shout out is available for the patrons in the $5 or above tier. We've got RT0, Wilma, Calex, Richard Rogers, Glad Goku, Dare Denny, SSS06, Kale Bennett, That Jordo, Kenkei of Warheads, Dazzle Fizzle, Hyper Mecha SP, what happened to the super? You've changed, man. Cirrus the Skeptic, Biotin, I've bought the entire helium supply, have fun blowing up balloons now, and Vera Wild. Thank you so much to you good folks for your generosity, and as for the rest of you, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. Get out!